I used to work at a Walmart that operated 24 hours a day. This was necessary due to my kid's school schedule, so I took overnight shifts to ensure I could drop him off and pick him up. My shifts ran from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. daily. During the day, I juggled sleeping, looking after my son, and holding down my second job. This period was exhausting, and covering rent was a constant challenge. The Walmart was a massive supercenter, not just a grocery store, offering everything one might need. It was among the few places open 24 hours in the area. However, I think the company eventually changed that policy. Around 10 o'clock on a cold night, the store still hosted a fair number of shoppers. Late-night shopping was common, although the atmosphere quieted down considerably as the night wore on. The late hours tended to attract an array of eccentric individuals, stranger than those seen during the day. At that time, only one person manned the front of the store, usually at the self-checkout registers. Regular registers were closed this late. A few stock workers, including myself, roamed the floor, while a couple of warehouse employees operated in the back, a space I rarely interacted with. The night manager oversaw everything during these hours. In the cereal aisle, I was engrossed in my usual stock work. A customer walked past the aisle, then moments later, he reappeared at the end, halted, and glanced down at me. When our eyes met, he shifted his attention to the cereal. The guy sported curly hair, and I couldn't discern his ethnicity. He carried a black backpack, appearing stuffed to the brim with who knows what. He lingered awkwardly in the aisle, seemingly eyeing the granola bars. Eventually, he edged closer and asked about the bread's location. I directed him accordingly, and he thanked me before slowly wandering out of the aisle. As he vanished from view, I tried to put him out of mind. However, he didn't remain out of sight for long. Despite spending quite some time in the cereal aisle, I noticed this guy passing by every few minutes, peering in my direction. He held nothing, skipped getting bread, and simply sported his big, sketchy backpack. I hastened my work, eager to conclude the aisle and distance myself from him. Once finished, I returned the empty U-boat platform to the warehouse. Grabbing another full of boxes for restocking, I deliberately selected an aisle far from the cereal section. Now, I was in the chips aisle. It had been approximately 45 minutes since our initial encounter, so there was no plausible way he could still be around. Yet, I was mistaken. He found me, as I rearranged the chips' newer bags behind the older ones on the shelf. I glanced to my right and saw that guy again, lurking at the end of the aisle, still empty-handed. He'd been loitering around the store for nearly an hour. Eventually, he advanced towards me, a moment I'd feared. I tried to avoid eye contact until he began speaking. Though I can't recall his exact words, he essentially mentioned how he'd been checking me out and couldn't resist approaching, complimenting my appearance. Politely, I feigned a laugh and replied, "No, thank you. That's very kind." However, he persisted, bombarding me with personal questions about my background. I fabricated answers to everything. The guy emitted a nauseating odor, and his breath was atrocious. I felt genuinely repulsed. When he requested my number, I lied, saying I was already in a relationship. He insisted that there was no harm in being friends, prompting me to provide a fake number just to get him to back off. I explained that I couldn't engage in conversation while working. He made a creepy remark before sauntering away, seemingly smug for getting my number, but in reality, he was just genuinely creepy, and I'd given him a bogus number. I hoped that would mark the end of it. Hours passed by, and time felt like it was slipping backward. All I wanted was to go home. Then, the only other stock worker on the job at that hour suddenly contacted me through the walkie-talkie, saying there was a creepy-looking guy asking for me. I muttered, "Oh no," and instructed her to tell him that I had already left. I swiftly made my way to the employee lounge, planning to hide for a while. Once there, I found a seat and settled in. Suddenly, the double doors swung open, and in walked that guy. He glanced at me, his expression turning angry. He yelled, "You gave me a fake number, you." I think I swallowed my gum out of fear. I hurriedly replied, "You can't be back here, sir." Without a second thought, he removed his backpack and dropped it on the table next to mine. As he unzipped it, I knew it was time to go. I sprang up and dashed past him, not even looking back. He attempted to grab my arm, but I managed to break free as I ran through the store. Glancing over my shoulder, I saw him chasing after me. I raced to the front of the store and sprinted outside to my car. It was my only instinctive move. I briefly considered finding the male warehouse workers in the back or even the manager, but nothing seemed certain. In my car, I noticed the man leaving Walmart, searching for me. He moved slowly, perhaps under the influence of something. He spotted my car, but I was already speeding away. I called the night manager, explaining what had transpired and expressing my discomfort with staying there that night. I also warned him about the man with a backpack filled with unknown contents. Despite my concerns, my manager insisted that I couldn't leave the place understaffed. He assured me he'd call the police to ensure the man wouldn't return and insisted I return to work that night. Firm in my decision, I refused to go back. Eventually, he relented, mentioning he'd review the camera footage. True to his word, I went back the next night. Supposedly, he informed the police the following day about the man and handed over the surveillance footage. I encountered numerous characters working that job, but this guy was undeniably the most frightening. I have no idea what he intended to retrieve from his backpack. And honestly, I'd rather not know. I used to work the night shift at Walmart, a job I thought would be routine, mundane even. Little did I know, that store held secrets far darker than its fluorescent-lit aisles suggested. The nights in Walmart unfolded like a silent theater of the strange and the unexplained. I walked the aisles, a lone sentinel in a maze of consumer goods, yet I was never truly alone. It began innocuously enough, with whispers drifting from the distant corners of the store. Soft, indistinct murmurs that I could never quite make out. At first, I dismissed them as the echoes of my own tired mind, the late hours playing tricks on my senses. But as nights passed, those whispers grew clearer, carrying a sense of urgency. Almost pleading, the aisles held a different energy after midnight, a subtle shift that gnawed at my nerves. Items appeared where they shouldn't, shelves rearranged as if moved by unseen hands. I chalked it up to pranks or perhaps the quirks of an old building, but deep down, a creeping unease settled within me. Then came the inexplicable cold spots. Chilling gusts of air in the middle of summer, sending shivers down my spine. No amount of heating could dispel the icy tendrils that seemed to snake their way around me, leaving me breathless and uneasy. Customers started mentioning odd experiences too. Some spoke of figures glimpsed in mirrors that vanished upon closer inspection. Others swore they heard hushed conversations in empty aisles, conversations that stopped as abruptly as they began. One particularly eerie night, as I made my rounds, the lights flickered wildly. Panic set in as darkness enveloped the store, leaving only the emergency lights casting eerie shadows. I fumbled for my phone, desperate for any semblance of light, but just as I did, a voice, ethereal and haunting, seemed to resonate from all directions. "Help me," it whispered, a plea laden with sorrow. I froze, heart pounding, trying to make sense of the disembodied voice. But before I could gather my thoughts, the lights surged back to life, and the store was silent once more. That night lingered with me, haunting my dreams and plaguing my thoughts. I searched for answers, delving into the store's history. It turned out Walmart stood on grounds that held a tragic past, a place where lives were lost, and souls were said to wander. My curiosity consumed me. I dug deeper, seeking solace in the store's archives, poring over faded records that chronicled incidents long forgotten. I uncovered tales of accidents within the building's vicinity, of unexplained disappearances, and of restless spirits said to roam the aisles. Yet, despite the chilling discoveries, something pulled me back to that store. A curiosity that bordered on obsession. I returned to my night shifts, armed with knowledge that only amplified the unsettling atmosphere. I began noticing patterns, subtle movements in the shadows, fleeting glimpses of figures in peripheral vision. The store felt like a living, breathing entity, with a presence that seemed to toy with my sanity. I confided in a few colleagues, hoping for solace in shared experiences, but their expressions mirrored my initial skepticism. They laughed off my accounts, dismissing them as overactive imagination fueled by the eerie setting, but one colleague, an older gentleman who'd been with the store for decades, pulled me aside one night. His weathered face etched with concern, he spoke in hushed tones, revealing tales passed down through generations of employees. "There's something about this place," he murmured. Stories whispered among us, incidents brushed under the rug. Spirits that linger in the aisles, seeking peace they never found in life. His words sent a chill down my spine, confirming the inexplicable occurrences I'd experienced. I wanted to leave, to escape the haunting confines of that Walmart, but a morbid curiosity gripped me tighter than any fear. One fateful night, as I patrolled the empty store, a sensation washed over me, a sudden, overwhelming feeling of being watched. Every step I took felt heavier, the air thickened with a palpable sense of dread. I stumbled upon an aisle bathed in an unnatural darkness. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting erratic shadows that danced along the walls. My heart raced as a cold sweat broke out across my brow. Then, from the abyss of that darkness, I heard it, the haunting melody of a child's laughter. The sound echoed, distorted and chilling. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. It couldn't be real, yet it reverberated through the aisles, growing louder with each passing second. "Mommy, I'm here," the voice whispered, tinged with innocence but cloaked in despair. Panic seized me, urging me to flee, but my feet remained rooted to the spot. The laughter grew more frenzied, an unnatural cadence that resonated with the stories I'd unearthed. In a flash of terror, the laughter ceased, swallowed by an eerie silence that seemed to envelop the entire store. I stumbled back, desperate to escape the oppressive presence, but a sudden gust of icy air enveloped me, sapping my strength. Just as swiftly as it began, the darkness lifted. The familiar hum of the store's machinery returned, the aisles bathed once more in artificial light. I fled that Walmart, never to return. The harrowing encounter etched into my memory, a testament to the inexplicable horrors that linger within its walls. To this day, I can't shake the feeling that those whispers still echo through its aisles, carrying untold stories of the past.